Yeah. You know what it is. It's seed talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. It's been a while. We just gonna get straight into it. We're not gonna get into the whole it's been a while, how you been. We're not even gonna talk about
what's your name, where you from, go ahead, show us how it's done. You remember that?
No, I don't. Not when you do it. And we're not talking about how Bobby is NWA cosplaying right now. We're not even going to talk about that. We could talk about how Bobby really enhancing his racial ambiguity might get him
deported, sent away, exiled.
You said it, man, and then you couldn't even hold in your smile, man. Too soon. We need to have a whole episode on, is it healthy to make light and make humor of very serious situations that are impacting us, like right now? You know what my take is on that. But anyway, let's just jump into this, man. We ain't been here for a while.
Before we get started, your face is so close to the camera that you kind of resemble one of those Easter Island statues. And I just wanted to put that out
there. Okay. This is okay. This is what we're doing now. Okay. That was good. That's a compliment, though.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
Yeah. You sounded very daring when you said that. You like that was supposed to be an insult, white guy.
No. Just a fact.
I've heard that before, and when I smile, I get the Cheshire cat from Alice in Wonderland. But it's all good. Oh man, I should have never said we was gonna take this back to old day, man. Just the toxic
energy is here.
The toxic energy. It's been a while since I've been on this StreamYard, but anyways, I'm doing good. Bobby, I know is doing good. Real quick before we do get started, I want to let people know that July 12th, 2025 at 1 p.m., we will be at the Burien Library. I don't know if Bobby will be there, but Bobby will be there. I think it's a Saturday, so he ain't locking people up.
Wow. There are Saturdays. I do work the Saturday calendar sometimes.
My bad.
Tell you, if you drink on Friday night, you might see me on Saturday morning. It is a possibility. You can get locked up on your off day. It's possible. Yeah,
we gotta have a whole episode on that. But July 12th at the Burien Library, I've started something called Reverse Tuition, in the efforts to provide mental health and grief support. We are offering conflict mediation classes. Burien Library, July 12th. You can enroll on Eventbrite. Just go on Eventbrite, or you can just show up to the library at 1 p.m. at Burien. And we're actually gonna pay you. We're gonna pay you to learn about mental health, grief support through the lens of conflict mediation. And it's actually pretty fun. You know, you're gonna be there for about an hour and a half. We're going to learn some strategies, and then we're going to jump into some scenarios. Trust me, it's a great way to earn $50 to $100. Then the next week, we're going to be at the White Senior Library on July 19th at 1 p.m. And we're doing the same thing. You can come as many times as you want, but there is a limit of people that we can take. It's about 20 people per session, but you can come as many times as you want. You can come and learn as much as you want, and you can learn and earn. Damn, bars. Did you hear the clapping? Okay. Anyways, so July 12th, 1 p.m., Burien Library. July 19th, White Center Library. Let's jump into this now. All right. So here's the deal. The Diddy trial is coming to the sentencing phase of it. Bobby can, drop he has a better lexicon than me when it comes to that kind of stuff to be really formal about it. I've had some thoughts about this for a while. I'm going to jump right into this. I was very frustrated, and I wrote a piece on this. I wrote a commentary on it, but I'm also going to actually, I'm getting more into video, trying to put out more creative content in that matter. But I was very frustrated and very disappointed, especially with a lot of my homeboys I'm talking on the phone with. There's a couple of them was like, in the very beginning, they were just like tripping. Like, I don't see what the big deal is. It's really scary out here. What's happening? And I'm like, what's going on? What are you talking about? Like, it's really scary out here that you can, get brought up on charges for flying a girl out and having sex with her. And I'm saying, that's what we're doing now. That's what we're really doing now. And that's when I was like, man, I really need to have a conversation with our children, with my bio children, with the students in the school, and not just my sons, but especially my sons. However, all children and young adults, and I guess adults too, people who are in their 40s need to hear, like, stop being clumsy. Stop being reductive and conflating this to the simple fact that, oh man, this is just a guy who flew out some women and had sex with them. And now they got man, it's so much thicker and deeper than that. And I was trying to explain to people that it wasn't a reach for a RICCO. When you are flying people out to have sex and you're paying them, and Bobby's going to get a little bit more deeper into this. And then at any time they're saying, hey man, I want to go home. And you're like, no. And you're stopping them from leaving, kidnapping, holding a person against their will. And then you're paying people to have sex with them. Prostitution, they got them on that. But then you're indulging in illegal drugs. So not only are you indulging in illegal drugs, who's buying those drugs? By what means are you using to purchase those drugs? Are you using bad boy credit cards? I'm not being funny. I'm being serious. Are you actually swiping a card? He probably is. Are you just paying people straight up cash? Is one of your employees with Bad Boy or any other enterprise that you own, your LLC or whatever, any corporation, are they purchasing these drugs for you to keep your hands clean? Are people using drugs and then they're not in the right state of mind to provide consent for these acts that they're doing? Are you having parties and are there illegal drugs being sold there? Bobby gonna get deep into this because I want to know what Bobby thinks about all this as a prosecutor. Are you having parties, knowingly having parties and inviting people on an official level with security and all that, and you're knowing that illegal acts are happening in a party that you're hosting on a piece of real estate that you... Come on, man. It's not just that simple that you're just flying people out. Are you filming people against their will without them knowing and then saying, hey, if you don't give me your masters, if you don't do what I asked you to do, I'm going to show it to somebody. These are all allegations and some pretty it's coming from some pretty reliable sources. There's more than one person saying like a lot of this stuff is happening. And here's another thing that I want to say before I turn it over to Bobby. I'm really disappointed in a lot of people that say, well, basically it's not if it was wrong or right, but can you prove it? I'm not saying it didn't happen, but can you prove it? That's how the court system works. We know that's how the court system works. But why is your threshold so high and so academic when it comes to a person like Diddy, who's a celebrity? But let one of your loved ones be a survivor or a victim of something like that. Your threshold is super low. All you got to hear is from someone on the street. Hey, man, Logic. Hey, man, man, he done snatched up your daughter, man, and got her up in the room. Oh, yeah, on site. I'm just saying, it ain't going to be PC. Our engagement is not going to be PC at all. So I'm not saying I'm going to do anything illegal. I'm just saying it's not going to be PC. I'm not an educator at that point. So Bobby, I mean, tell me what you feel. I know I just now threw up all over this podcast. Tell me what you're thinking, because I still want to get deep into the weeds with that. I'm a little irritated still to this day because people are celebrating this stuff, man. Oh, you was
I struggle with the comparisons. Like that's the first sort of block to trip over is where, like, a person who makes anything under $250,000 compares themselves to a person who literally has been known to have a literal empire. And I believe that's what Diddy's sort of accumulated wealth amounts to, is an empire. You don't have an empire. So because you don't have an empire, when you throw a party, it's probably like 3 people you went to high school with that show up to your house. And those people probably bring their own illicit substances because you said BYOB or whatever else. And so just right there on its face, we have a terrible comparison that's being made. If people are bringing their own illicit substances or contraband to your place, and you're inviting them there for a non-profit purpose, you're not doing the same thing. So saying that, watching someone get indicted because there's more than probable cause or probable cause to believe, which is a legal standard, that they're essentially using their own space to facilitate criminal activity on their property and mutually gain benefit from it, since that's what we're looking at with RICCO. I
didn't even talk about that. That's a good point. Like, how are we knowing that he's not selling these drugs and he's actually profiting from it? Like, this is actually like a trap house, like a multi-million-dollar trap house.
But like, you're not doing that, And then if you are, the scale of it is so minute that nobody cares. This is very much like where I would say 15 years ago, you might say to a friend, I'm just letting you know this is not me, but I know people do this. Somebody might have said, I have some marijuana. Would you like to come over and smoke? But unless they were charging the people for the marijuana, they're still not soliciting. They're still not committing a crime in terms of facilitating illegal conduct, because the possession was the issue. There's no transaction there. So when I hear people say that dating is dangerous, then I have to ask them, like, what are you doing? Is this Squid Games? Like, what's happening? Has things changed? Is it not that you take somebody out to eat and then you hope that you get lucky? Is it something else? I must not know. I guess I've been out too long. That was my initial thought when you said that people were nervous about this, because I just don't understand why you would make a comparison to Diddy. And also, you're not newsworthy on average. And that's also important to realize. The United States of America could care less as a government institution what you personally are doing. They're not going to make any money off of you in terms of civil asset forfeiture, which is another reason why you go after these big guys, because the state can actually collect your property if your property is involved in the illicit or illegal act, because that is the seeds or the fruits of the illegal act. Essentially, they can make the argument that you paid for it with illegal dollars, and that's how they can collect it from you. So,
well, I understand how this works on a very intimate level, because with the Griot Party experience, I've had house parties. That's how the Griot Party experience started. Hip hop, spoken word, storytelling theater right here in my house. Not this one, but a different one. I had a live band in my living room, a DJ, someone on the guitar, someone on the keyboard. Sometimes, someone would come over and play the trumpet. Owar, shout out to Owar. He got a couple Grammys with Macklemore.
Owar Oranga?
Absolutely.
You dropping names.
That's, man, I got to, because I got to let you know how serious this is for me. I'm being, like, I joke around a lot, but I'm being serious. And there would be alcohol there. And there would be marijuana there. Now, marijuana in the form of edibles, marijuana in the form of, smoking it, right? Here's the deal. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I did not see any other kinds of drugs there. And you know why, Bobby? Because when they stepped into my house, they already knew what time was. Logic ain't on that. Now, I always would be like, hey, man, if y'all want to smoke, y'all can go outside. If you got pork, you can go outside. I wouldn't even let people.
Can you have bacon in the house?
Nah, man, you can't have pork in my house, bro.
I said, "Assalamu alaikum." Boy, I'm eating the pork now.
But on the real though, we would drink responsibly, and there have been some times at every house party, I've had people who are still there. We get in a circle, hold hands, and say, "Hey, man, if you are intoxicated and you cannot drive, you are welcome to stay here. This is a safe place." I've had people sleep on my floor, sleep on my couch. I've had people get their car keys taken because I know, even though I'm operating under an LLC, I know that I am responsible, you know what I'm saying, to a certain degree, if I'm throwing a party and there's people doing illegal stuff there. And people already know. And that's why a lot of people like to come to my house parties, especially women, because it's like it's a safe place.
But
you know what I'm saying?
I want to interject here just so people understand. Alcohol consumption, the courts have decided, is personal responsibility issue. So if you throw a party at your house and you watch somebody consume too much alcohol and then get into their car, you have to be so irresponsible in the way that you do it. Like you watch them literally roll out of your house instead of walk. That's the level of irresponsibility you would have to be found personally liable as a private individual. And we do that because the courts do not want to be involved in people's private lives to that extent. And we don't want every single Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July for people to be essentially sued by families who were killed by drunk drivers. That's the reason the courts are somewhat relaxed in terms of that. So again, coming back to my original point about how poor this comparison is and how irresponsible it is to say you're at risk. You're not at risk because you had some girl over and you tried to get her tipsy. That's not the same thing.
But that's still not good, bro.
That could be rape.
Yeah.
That's what that is, but that's not going towards the type of situation Diddy was in.
Yeah, and not to mention they were saying that there was guns up in his house with the serial number scratched out. I kind of threw that out the window because he could easily beat that and say, I don't know where those guns came from. I have a big old house. I don't know who. They couldn't really prove whose guns they were. So I kind of left that out. But all that other stuff that I said, that stuff that has been jigsawed by me on my little, you know what I'm saying, guerrilla journalism. Like people really saying that they went to his parties, you know what I mean? And got there, crossed state lines on his dollar, and then they couldn't leave. Now, am I saying that he did the stuff? No, I'm just saying this qualifies a RICCO. And they're like, well, it already got settled out of court. It got settled out of court with the disposition and whatnot. He paid, Cassie millions of dollars. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be insulting when I say things like this. I'm just being 100% academic. Do you not read? Do you not study? Where's your scholarship? When you're in it, now you can correct me if I'm wrong. When you're in a disposition and you're going through this whole civil matter, I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology. You can correct me when I'm done. Just take notes. But then you start saying, oh, yeah, he did this and I want to settle, civilly. However, in the process of doing this, if you're talking about some crimes that were done that exceed like a civil case, that could be brought up against you. Like if she starts saying, oh, yeah, he was doing this to other people and this, that, and the third. And then I'm like, yeah, man, we can't wipe that clean. Oh, you tricked me. Well, you should have known that, yeah, you were under oath and you can't say that. That's a federal crime. How off am I on that?
It's not that you're off. It's just that I think you have a like a layperson's understanding, which is not bad. Like you're in a good spot. I would just say that when you talk about a criminal and a civil case, even assuming they happen near the same time, the civil case would almost always happen after the criminal case if the plaintiff in the civil case wants to recover the most that they can. And the reason why they do that is if you're convicted in the criminal case, the standard for being convicted in the criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. So beyond a reasonable doubt is such a higher standard that when you show up to civil court and they only have to prove beyond a preponderance or 51%, more likely than not, then it becomes very simple. If you are convicted beyond a reasonable doubt, it is definitely more likely than not. And they can use that judgment so long as the two claims are similar enough to basically prove, independent of any actual evidence put on, that you are liable in a civil sense.
Yeah.
Now, where the disposition of the civil case happens before the criminal case, this is a strategy by the respondent in the civil case, who would be the defendant in the criminal case, to minimize his potential liability, because he knows if he's found guilty and then does the civil trial, he's going to be cooked to a much larger degree. So he tries to hedge his bet by settling on the front end in the civil case, so that if he loses in the criminal case, there's no more consequences. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but it kind of backfired, because I think she was saying a whole bunch of stuff that couldn't be retracted. I mean,
but here's the thing. He's charged with respect to Cassie, like essentially domestic violence charges. And then she's a witness and a party to this other much larger, more serious criminal crime. But in her civil trial against him, which didn't proceed because it was disposed, right? Because there was a resolution. You saw some testimony, but they didn't end up having to make a finding, which is great for Diddy in terms of his reputation, because he can say, well, they didn't find me liable. I just paid to resolve. Now, when you pay to resolve it, that case and those claims against you are so different from the criminal world when you talk about those federal charges. Cassie's not able to hold him civilly liable for his actions that the feds are looking into, because that's a purely criminal matter.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
So, like,
yeah.
we're testifying about like him beating her up, for example, it goes directly to the intentional tort of, battery or assault. So you can prove an aggravated battery depending on the depth of your injury. In the civil context, you still have to then prove it in the criminal context. But that's not like she doesn't have legal standing to hold him personally responsible for RICCO in a civil trial. She's not the state. She has no standing. She's not the victim in that situation. Her testimony, however, was under oath, to your point. So in the criminal trial, the state could attempt to utilize her statements from the other trial that was under oath to admit them for that jury and say, I know that this is not what we're talking about, but this could be relevant for our trial. And that's an evidentiary ruling that the judge has to make.
Yeah,
and whether it is more probative or prejudicial, and then prejudicial meaning confusing to the jury. So you can't just like introduce stuff that essentially has nothing to do with the charges that he's facing in a criminal trial. So that's why this is highly technical, but the meat and bones of it is try not to merge the civil and criminal trial in your understanding. And also understand that you're charged with more than one count. So just because you're innocent of one doesn't mean you're not guilty of the others, and vice versa. And that's something I see a lot of people completely misunderstand.
This is a good time to segue. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about people pursuing civil charges instead of criminal? And look, and here's what I want you to really dive into, because I think it goes into what we deal with in the community. And here on C Talk, it's a bait and switch always with me. I'm gonna be transparent with you. I'm gonna bring you in with the celebrity stuff, the pop culture stuff, but I'm like, how does this fit into what's actually going on in our community? And I hear a lot in our community, and I think this goes into sexism and, dislike and this subconscious hatred towards women. If it really happened, then why they going after the civil suit? If it really happened, why they trying to get money? Why don't we just put this man in jail? This guy needs to be off the street. Why are we allowing him just to pay some money and still be out in the street and potentially preying on people? What do you think about Number one, people pursuing civil charges instead of criminal. And then what do you think about the commentary when people go for the civil saying, ah, man, they just have to get money?
I think the commentary is based in a lack of understanding. I think the commentary is based on a lack of understanding, because I make the decision as the prosecutor whether or not I want to bring the criminal charges. But you, the victim, may feel like you were wronged regardless of whether me, the prosecutor, believes that you have a case.
Mm-hmm.
So you're insulated from the risk of seeing nothing happen at all if you control what happens, which you can in the civil process, because the plaintiff can bring that lawsuit themselves. They don't need the state to sponsor that action. So at a minimum, you could say that it's a certain level of surety, or it is a certain level of narrative control, because it's also an opportunity for them to put their information out, put their story out in their complaint. And that does become, or can become, public record as well. So it is also a way to sort of preserve your reputation, because imagine this. There are situations where, and we can get straight to the point with women, where there's less than probable cause to believe that a rape occurred, but it's still more likely than not that it occurred. And the difference between those two standards means that in one, the prosecutor is not filing, but in the other, the victim is still likely to prevail in a civil trial. So are you telling the women who are likely to prevail in the civil trial but lose in the criminal trial because of the evidentiary standards that people have in courts, that they should just eat it? They should just say, oh, well, if I can't meet the highest burden possible that we have in our legal system, I should give up.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Why would they do that?
Yeah, it's a chess game. Yeah.
If you can meet that preponderance standard, which is 51%, more likely than not. If you can prove more likely than not that something happened, but not prove it to a substantial certainty, then my comment is going to be, go the civil route, because that's the standard you can meet. And that's how you can recover something. Because the conviction in the criminal court, unless you sue afterwards, but the conviction in the criminal court by itself is a very abstract form of justice, and that we're holding the person accountable, but it doesn't mean you get anything. There's no guaranteed restitution.
Yeah.
We have cases where people total someone else's car and they say they can't afford it. They say they can't afford it and they don't have insurance. What happens? Your car is totaled. You may lose your job because you can't go to work, right?
And they got bad credit. That's what happens. That's it.
So now you totaled somebody else's car when you were drunk driving, and the state can't compel you to pay. But if we did, then we'd have all the people in the community and up in arms saying debtors' jails are unethical, right up until they had their car totaled and couldn't drive to work. Then they would understand it. But still, the point is, you get what you can, and you have an obligation to yourself to pursue justice in the way that you can achieve it. And that's the reason why I think the commentary is irresponsible, because it reeks of a sort of privilege that someone would have, assuming that they would testify and be believed and result in a conviction. But that's a much harder guarantee to secure than 51%, meaning more likely than not.
You know what's really interesting is when especially in the black community, when brothers and sisters get their butt whooped by the police, and then they say, hey man, I ain't trying to take this cop to the to court, man. I'm not trying to go through that whole process. I'm just going to hit Seattle Police Department up for a civil suit and get them to settle. No one's like, but did it really happen? You were just out to get money. Cops really didn't beat you up. If they really beat you up, why wouldn't you want that cop to go to jail? I'm like, there's something when it comes to women, definitely onto something there, but it's also something when it comes to sexual assault too. There's something with that, man.
Well,
there's something with that.
Sexual assault is challenging for two reasons. Well, actually a lot more than two, but two main reasons. And I'll say one of them is that people are not always ready to report the act in what I call seasonable time. So if someone reports the act, let's say 4 years after it happened, what are the odds that we're going to get scientific evidence of this act? You know,
Yeah.
probably going to be subpoenas for phone records so that we can see y'all talking nasty to each other in the text messages. But
Yeah.
that's only where there's an actual relationship between the parties. So what if it's a random person and there's no communication, right? No communication, and it's not reported timely. So you didn't get a SANE exam, or you didn't get the rape kit. What do you think we're going to be able to do as the state? How are we going to prove that? And Washington also has interesting rape shield laws. And rape shield refers to the rules of evidence around sexual propensity and what you're able to elicit in testimony. There are some places where you can put evidence on about what someone likes in bed, for example.
What?
And then there are places where you cannot. And that's an evidence question state by state.
Why would that even be relevant? What they like in bed?
For example, if somebody likes it when their left ear is pinched, and there is a male saying, well, I always have the green light to pinch her ear because I know she likes that. And then he's going to want to put testimony in the record about all the times he pinched her ear and she liked it. And this is going to go towards the idea that he had implied consent, even if it wasn't expressed. And he's going to try and put this out so that the jury will say, oh, there's really a personal beef between them. It's not about this act. And
right.
ultimately acquit him. And there's some states that will allow that testimony. And then there's other states that will say, absolutely not. You cannot speak to the victim's likes and dislikes. And I'm telling you right now, if you're an advocate for the accused, you're going to be upset in those states. You're not going to like it when you see that essentially the court is blocking you from putting any information about what the plaintiff or the victim wants in that scenario, because you're going to feel like that's not a defense that's like given to you. And so it's the same thing like you were just talking about, where people's perspective and where they're at in comparison to the issue bleeds a lot into their analysis. It's not an objective thing.
Yeah. I said something to one of my homeboys online, and he tried to do the quick reversal on me real quick when yeah, man, he tried to do the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene on me real quick. I said, man, your threshold is a lot lower, man, if this would have happened to one of your family members. It's on site with Diddy, because I was like, man, I'm confident you're similar to me. It's not going to be PC. We're not doing all this. And his reply was, well, what if my son was accused of it? And it's like, oh, that's a clumsy reversal right there. Because if your son was accused of the things that Diddy was and then caught on camera doing those things, that's a clumsy reversal, my guy. That's just a clumsy reversal. I'm like, now you're like, son, just turn yourself in, because I can't hold the mob. I can't hold the mob off, man. And I'm kind of part of the mob because this is not how I raised you, son. So that's just a clumsy reversal, man. So I think I want to make this transition, and I want you to speak on it. What does this have to do with our just inherent internal dislike of women? This is what I'm learning, relearning, being reminded. A lot of us in our community, we got problems with women, man, and seeking justice for women.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'll speak to it as a prosecutor and then as a person and a father. So as a prosecutor, I struggle with the idea that I'm just supposed to believe anybody. So when I hear believe women, I'm just like,
Right.
believe the evidence. I don't
That's
care
trash.
about.
Yeah, I don't
I
like that
don't care
movement. That hashtag movement was trash. That was
Yeah,
trash.
you're never gonna have me say because the plaintiff or the complaining person is a woman, therefore what comes out of their mouth must be true. I don't care who said it. That is my first and only rule about hearsay. So I don't care who said it. I don't believe that that makes it more persuasive. So there's that. But then, as a father, when I hear some of the arguments that I see men making online, they're looking for more of a license to do stuff that is not okay. So
Right.
like if all of your arguments and all your positions move to give men more freedom and less accountability around behavior that's fringe criminal and directly criminal, then I'm concerned because that's the world that my kids have to exist in. My female children have to exist in.
Right.
And even though it's not comfortable to talk about your children having, these intimate situations, I want my kids to have the same joys that I have. I want them to be able to enjoy those parts of life, but I want them to be able to enjoy it free of violence, right? And free of sort of coercion. So when I hear people argue for baseline coercion as legal conduct that the state is basically not endorsing, and they should, since that's how people feel about it, it's concerning. It's concerning because that's a universe that, my daughters are going to have to learn how to defend themselves in. And I just don't know that it's a good setup for them if men are basically allowed to do whatever they want, because nobody should be allowed to do whatever they want. And the reason why is because what I want and what's good for me is not always good for the other person. It's not always safe for the other person. Sometimes when you're driving, you see somebody on the road, they cut you off, you want to run them off the road, but you can't do that because you'll have consequences. People will then suggest, well, if we remove those consequences, then we'll see what happens. I'm like, we don't need to see what happens. We know what will happen. People will get hurt.
Right.
I'm not for those experiments.
Yeah. I just think that men in general need to stop always looking at, I have daughters, and not there's not no pushback from what you said. I'm just saying in general, I don't, to add on to what you're saying, it's not about you having daughters. It's about this is happening to a human being that is vulnerable in our community. And we have a tendency to inherit and adopt these colonial, attitudes where we think it's cool and beneficial, literally beneficial, to exploit the most vulnerable in our community, because that's an extension of like the plantation politics. That's exactly what happened. And we have been taught by our oppressor, that's how you get forward in this world. And I remember I said that on the phone with you about Diddy. And you were like, oh, wow, is that what we're doing now? Yeah, that's what I'm doing. It's like, how can Diddy allow you to get the plug when he's totally getting plugged the whole way to get where he's going, to get where he's been? And when you put it in that perspective, like everything that Diddy is doing to other people. Now look, let's jigsaw this. This is not act like this is an isolated situation. This is not an island. This is a man who has had strong allegations by other men. Let's just take sex off the table. Let's just take rape off the table. Other men have said he has been cutthroat about paying me my money. So I can even just talk to men on that level. Let's just talk to men. Let's do man code right here. This guy's a snake. some very, very legitimate sources have said this dude is a snake. Jadakiss, Mace, you know, all these cats talking about, hey, man, we have to put the pressure on him, man. Like, what's the, you know? And these men were able to fight back because at one point they were in a vulnerable stage and they let him know, I'm not the one, my guy. And then he, you know, however, for Diddy to even try them, what was his training? What was his orientation? He was taught that. Now, this ain't no conspiracy theory. It's just a known fact, man. That's just how the industry works, man. You know, it's on some very, very dastardly, toxic quid pro quo type stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the reason why, like, Diddy's like, you think I'm going to give you your masters and give you royalties and give you money? Do you know what I had to go through to get to this level? Now, I have no way to prove that. But what I can say is on the community level, this is how we operate way too many times. Let's talk about street families.
I was gonna go even more simple.
Yeah. Let me just do the street family thing and then you can get in. No Diddy. My bad. I shouldn't do that. Nah, I shouldn't do that. Let me stop. I shouldn't do that because people can say that I'm making fun of like survivors and victims. And that was just, anyways, my bad. I apologize. We can go street families, also known as, in a very colloquial sense, gangs. And we got people who are in these street families who are not going to give you a pass on certain things. Hey, homie, you in the wrong neighborhood to be wearing that color. Man, you know, I just go with my outfit. No pass. Boom, 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 boom. Sock you up. My bad. I had to do that. Why? I got jumped in for this. I got my butt whooped for this. I had homies die over this, man. That's just how much is on cold. My bad. Now you just know. Just don't wear the colors over here no more like that. You feel me? Or just even other stuff, man. Just like either petty stuff, like stepping on someone's shoes or bumping it. Nah, homie, someone went up beside my head when I stepped on their shoes. I cannot give you a pass on this. No. You know what I mean? Or you have a slip of the tongue. I remember back in the day, I can't remember if I had a slip of the tongue or a slip of the fingers or something. I threw something up or I said something, but here's the point. It was up in that computer room. I don't know if it was still there when you were there. We was in the computer room at O'Day, man. And we must have been in this computer room, bro. And you know, O'Day, man, they let some characters in there. Like they probably did really, really good in the interview. You know what I'm saying? With the father and the bishop and the dean and the principal. They probably did really good when they was sitting next to grandma. And then they come to school, man. They be on uniform. They wouldn't have no blue jeans on, but hey, man, gangsters didn't wear blue jeans back. They wore khakis. He had a button up and everything. Nigga had the khakis sagging, all that. He was a BGD. He was in a computer class. I said something disrespectful about BGDs. I don't know what to me, it wasn't even disrespectful. Because, you know, back in the day, you could call someone a slob. It's a rap. You could call someone a crab. It's a rap. You could call a Crip a dog. I'm being serious. And it's a rap. You could call a Blood a loke. It's a rap. See, I'm getting into gang culture right now. These are breadcrumbs. You got to understand the era I grew up in. Anyway, or I might have slipped up and threw a BGD on, man, thinking it was a game. Hey, Bobby, this dude walked over to nigga, what? I said, hey, man, I was just boom, boom, real quick. Pow, sock me in my chest real quick. My homie Rob was like, you ain't gonna do nothing? Hell no, I ain't gonna do nothing. I'm gonna go ahead and get on this computer and act like I'm doing something. And he just socked me in my chest. I'm not even, man, I could make this up. I'm not. The next day, it's a cool brother. Hey man, my fault, P, man. Hey man, look, man, you just can't play like that, man. On the set, homie. For real. My bad, homie. I didn't, man, you a cool ass nigga, man. I shouldn't have done that to you. And I was like, yup. I wasn't even mad at him because he taught me. Like, you can't be doing stuff like that. My point is, that's my way of kind of putting it on a micro level of, what's apparent, what's going on with, with people in that industry, man. Now, look, this is what I mean in simple terms, and I'll let Bobby jump in, because people be like, oh man, how can you prove anything? Okay. What he did to Cassie on camera, there have been reliable sources that says Suge did that to him. They said that Suge slapped the dog piss out of Puffy. Used to punk him. So it's no surprise that he would do that and other things to other human beings who are vulnerable. And if you look at Puffy's upbringing, bro, he did not start off as no bad boy. He started off as the bad looking dude in the mailroom at Arista Records. How did he make it from the mailroom to the boardroom? He paid his dues. All I know is Street Family, you gotta get jumped in. I wonder how he got initiated. But you said you had a more simplistic example.
I mean, it's not always like the criminal world, I mean, half of the people that share letters, right? The people in Black Greek letter organizations. I had someone tell me when I was online for a different org, they said to me, you know how I know you're not gonna cross? And I said, how? And he was like, because I'm gonna make sure you don't. Because I had it tough, you gonna have it worse.
Damn.
And I said to him, because this is just me, your organization is going to die then, because you're going to run out of members. It's going to be just you. Are you okay being the last one? Are you okay being the last one?
Bobby, he probably just didn't like you.
And he was like, you're so arrogant. And I was like, but you're dumb, because this idea that you have will just result in nobody being here in the end.
Well, he probably just didn't like you, Bobby. He probably just didn't like you.
He had a lot of issues with me. But this is not unique to me. This is just a part of Black Greek letter organization culture, is that you get these guys that join a line, they make it, they cross, they went through hell, and they decide that the only way you can join our organization is if we break you down at an atomic level and essentially injure you as much as we can without killing you. And sometimes they make a mistake and people do die. And that's the reason why the organizations are, struggling so much with insurance now. That's why Black Greek letter life is at risk, because insurance is too expensive, because the insurance companies understand that there are lines, there are going to be groups of people who do this to people, who do this to aspirants, and aspirants are going to get hurt in the process. And, there's chapters that have the word bloody in it, and it's because they want you to know you have to bleed to join this chapter. That's a real thing.
Well, I don't.
And it's like,
I guess it depends on how you bleed, but I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
It's weird.
It just depends. Huh?
It's just weird to me, because the idea is that in these organizations, in the end, whether it's a gang or it's a fraternity, the idea is that this collection of people is going to exist to uplift internally, that everybody here is going to be made better by our organization, and we're going to prosper together. But first, we have to kick the shit out of you.
Oh, I wasn't talking about like bleeding like that, but I think that. Well, I mean, we had blood brothers back in the day. I remember when I was in 5th grade, I had a blood brother. He was a white dude. We cut our fingers and did it. But also bleeding in a way Well, no, because we know. Come on, man. I'm not trying to be obtuse or anything, but you and I both participated in combat sports, right? I used to box. I used to play football. You used to just play football too. You're a much better football player than me. But but listen, there is bleeding that is involved in boxing and in football, and that's a badge of honor too. Like when you get off that football field and you got those astroturf stains and I mean abrasions on your skin and everything, that's a badge of honor. So I get it, and it brings people together. And I think there should be some kind of initiation. And dare I say hazing? I don't know if that's the correct word. There's definitely a difference between hazing and initiation. But I had to go through an initiation for everything that I've done to make it to that elite level. Am I at the elite level now as a professional educator? To a certain degree, yeah. Yeah. As a high school educator, I am at the elite level of pre-post secondary, enlightenment is the pinnacle of that is high school. Then you get to make the choice, do you pursue it later on? But I had to go through an initiation. And now all this stuff is based on a rites of passage.
Whether you all right, go ahead. It goes away. What is the difference between legitimate initiation, right, and the sorts of initiations that we're talking about with Cassie, with Diddy, where these people are trying to achieve a certain status that less than 1% of the population has an opportunity to do? And then as a result of that, the cost is astronomical, or the initiation is astronomical. What is the difference between them?
What you mean, like how I got initiated to be a principal, or and
like what's the difference? Like how do we know when the line is legitimate? Like how do we know when the initiation is legitimate or whether we're asking too much? Because I think that all of us would say that the things that Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura, the things that these people experience in order to reach the heights that they do, we would say those are heights that we just really shouldn't ask of anybody. Those are initiations that are inappropriate. So what's the difference between inappropriate and appropriate initiations?
And I think that's a trick question coming from a prosecutor. So I'm gonna no, but my answer doesn't change. And I thought about it in our process. Is a crime being committed? I mean, I think that draws the line. I mean, that's it for me. I mean, but that's the real reason why I could never ever join a gang or a street family or a Greek letter organization, be a part of the Divine Nine. I think the Divine Nine is dope. I'm not going to call myself a Greek. I probably would have been an iota or something like that, because, they base it off a lot of African, systems. But I couldn't get down with, you're going to put your hands on me and do things and tell me what to do. And I can't say nothing back. We've been fighting. And you're not gonna jump me in and I don't get to fight back. That's just not gonna happen. That's just not. I'm just not built like that. I just, So I decided to get in debt, by $80,000 to $90,000, and join a different fraternity of educators. Called student loan fraternity. But it's all an initiation, man. And we can have a different episode about that. But it's like all based on Masonic and, Egyptian rites of passage or Kemetic rites of passage. Because if you look at everything you do, even at a graduation, if you study the formal wear of a graduation, the capes, the gowns and all that, that's like Masonic order, stuff. And so they carry that stuff into, and that's a whole different episode too. They carry that into the entertainment industry. And I do liken it to a Greek organization. the first people to approach me to participate in something bigger than me were the Greek fraternities. It was a Kappa, and then it was an Alpha, and then the Omega was like, yeah, nah, he ain't one of us. Y'all can have him. And then but it was really the Kappas and the Alphas was like, yeah, Logic's really, yeah, he seemed like a Kappa. And then Alpha's like, nah, he's one of us, because he's pro-black. We incorporate a lot of Egyptian stuff, with the Alphas. And they was all buying for me. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'll just be a Black Panther. If I'll be inspired by them. I'm in the Black Student Union. I know how y'all get down. I'm not doing that because it goes God frat, right? And they were like, yep. I said, yeah, I got friends, I got family. And where does BSU fit in that? God frat. So BSU is down here. So that means you're going to make decisions that might be adverse to the Black Student Union because the Black student is probably way, way down here somewhere. Like, so yeah, I can't make that compromise. I'm sorry. I'm committed to the BSU, the Black Student Union. And that's fine because we need people on many different fronts.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's just not for me. And they got that. And I respected it until someone, the vice president of the Black Student Union, who was a Kappa, stole money. And then that became a problem because he got beat up. The president got beat up by the vice president, and I was the vice president because they were like, it's God. I broke it down. It's like, it's God frat, so we're not turning him into the university, and we're not going to handle this. And they were like, oh, we'll just handle it ourselves. And okay, well, I'll just beat him up. So I almost got kicked out of UW for that.
Solved it, huh? Solved it.
It is, man. Like, hey, statute of limitations, man. That was almost 30 years ago.
We're not going to get you. We missed our filing date. I'm sorry.
It already got kicked out of court. It already got kicked out of the court. It already got kicked out. All charges were dropped. Because he went to the police. Them Kappas go to the police.
This is not fair. This is not fair. And I'm not a Kappa, but this is slander.
I know. I just had to just do a little dig. I'm having fun. But we got like 3 minutes, man. Airplanes. I want to ask you a question I asked you offline. Based on your experience with prosecuting certain people and they beating charges, and they're released into the public after they beat these charges, what's the pattern? What is the history? What's the data tell you of how they interact with, like, do they restore themselves? Do they rehabilitate? Do they just go neutral? Or they just be better abusers and better criminals? Like, what's your prediction of how Sean Puffy Combs is going to act after he gets out of this whole ordeal and as a freed man?
I think my concern with Mr. Combs is going to be that he becomes more insular and that he sort of tightens the circle. If I was him and I had been sort of running this enterprise and gone untouched for a long time, he might just look at the Cassie Ventura hire, I'll call it a personnel decision, as a mistake because he didn't manipulate her enough since she eventually had the confidence to essentially expose him. And he probably just looks at that as a mistake. That's concerning because it would just mean that if he were to participate in the same behavior, he would be even more manipulative and even more toxic as a way to maintain his supremacy and control over everything without the risk of being exposed. So that would be my concern. Now, as far as my criminal law experience and what I've observed, two cases come to mind. I had one case where I convicted a guy and he didn't get any jail time on this gun charge. And he was 18 years old. And I had told the judge that this person is such a young individual that all you can do right now is teach him that this was not a serious incident. He had brought a gun on school campus and I convicted him of that felony. And she released him based on his age. which I thought was the exact opposite thing to do based on his age because of
That's
what he was.
that's very common, by the way. Because
Yeah,
I work in the schools and I actually pull guns off of kids. It's very common for them to be out the next day or less than a week. For
yeah.
real.
Well, he was out, and then he committed 2 more gun crimes 3 weeks later. And the judge didn't help him because had he been in custody even for 60 or 90 days, he wouldn't have been able to commit those felonies. So he committed 3 felonies before his 19th birthday. And as a result of that, he was running into mandatory time after that. So now, we're looking at somebody saying, oh, his brain wasn't fully developed. You guys overcharged him, blase, blase. But if he had not been released originally, would not have had the opportunity to commit multiple gun crimes afterwards.
See, I see that. I see that as kind of a setup too, man. I can't prove it, man, but I don't know. Is it because the juvenile detention, they're so full, all their beds are full or whatever, but just releasing him, I don't know. See, I know that the court system is somewhat, responsible in the fact that they're going to offer some mandatory classes or maybe an ankle monitor or something like that. They're going to make some, minimum attempts to try to rehabilitate them. But I don't know. That just kind of seems like a setup. How how you said it. Like he was released, and then he, now he's facing some mandatory charges. You know what I'm saying? That he maybe could have avoided if he had gotten some education on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
People are so split on how to hold folks accountable and what it means and why you should or shouldn't do it. The other case is more comparable to Diddy. This kid named Jacoby, he's not a minor, but whatever. So his name was Jacoby Adolph. He was in New Mexico. And this young man had been in a DV relationship with his girlfriend as a high school student. The mother of the victim knew the defendant's father, and the defendant's father was serving life in prison at the time for a murder. So she felt bad for him because she knew that he did not have any positive influences in his life. So she was willing to sacrifice, at least in my opinion, to sacrifice her own daughter because she was unwilling to ever participate in our cases. And so what ended up happening, and I had a conversation with this mother, and then she said, I don't want to participate in the mass incarceration of Black men. And I said, but you do want to participate in your daughter's ass getting whooped. That's what you want?
That's what you said to her?
Yes, I did. And
Bobby.
She said, well, no, I don't want that, but I just feel like I'm in a rock and a hard place because I think that he didn't have a good example. And I said, but is it your job to offer your daughter to him as a sample for learning?
Damn, that's a bar right there. That's a bar.
And she said to me, you know what? I don't want to do this. You're not going to change my mind. I said, I'm not here to change your mind. That's not my job. My job is to hold Mr. Adolph accountable so that he doesn't hurt somebody seriously. Your contention is that he loves you.
That's a cool last name too for what I think you're about to say.
I was like, your contention is that he loves your daughter. But if he loves your daughter and he's willing to do this to her, what does that mean for the rest of us who he doesn't give a fuck about?
Damn.
And she said, that is scary, but I'm not going to participate. And she didn't. And he's doing at least a decade right now for mandatory time because he committed 3 violent felonies after that within the next 90 days.
Okay.
So people don't necessarily do better.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say that he murdered the daughter, man. Whew.
No, thank goodness. But at the same time,
right.
What's the difference to me between her and anybody else? They're all the same. They're all equal to me.
Right. No, I get it. Yeah.
That's the problem is that when we get back to your original question about the sort of toxic relationship with, how we feel about women, it's like women are people. And if you don't give them that respect, then you'll allow things to happen to them that you won't allow to happen to your sons. So you need to see them as people, and it's that simple.
Yeah. Hey, I want everyone to share and comment on this. We need this episode. We need Seed Talk, to get back some traction and whatnot. And before we go through the action plan and talk about like the homework and whatnot, I wanted to say to Bobby real quick. I don't know if you knew this or not, but I am out a lot more than I would like to be out. I'm more of a homebody as I get older. But I will say I go out to festivals, I go to community events, and people come up to me on a regular basis and be like, yeah, man, I be watching, you on Seed Talk, man. I be watching you and Bobby over there and Precious and doing that stuff, man. I be like, wow. And I be thinking, why don't you share it? Why don't you comment? We're going to have a whole episode where we're going to have these Johnny come lately black folks, these gaslighting black folks. We're going to have a whole episode and it was like, oh, man, so sorry to hear that your business, shut down and, you had to close shop and you had to go out of business. And I'm like, but you never came to the store. You never bought anything. And when you did come into the store to buy something, you always try to haggle me down. But then you're talking about, oh, man, we really miss your business. Same thing goes for podcasts. It's like, dang, man, why y'all ain't go viral? Y'all be talking about that stuff because you never shared it. You never commented. So share, comment, tell other people about this and what we're doing, because I'm not even going to lie. I have to own some of the responsibilities when I don't get the feedback that I feel like I should get. And, expectations ruin a lot of relationships. So I ruin the relationships with our audience when I don't, I'm expecting to get a certain amount of feedback. I just need to do it just to do it. And that is the reason why I do it. But I would be lying to you and I would definitely be disingenuous if I didn't say that it definitely has an impact on me, whether, I'm seeing people comment and things of that nature. So I was just being vulnerable real quick. But based on what we talked about today, this is a good episode, man. We're on here for an hour and 7 minutes. What you think the action plan is, man? Like, let's take this back to the community. Like, what do we learn from this Sean Puffy Combs incident that we could take back to our community?
I'd say, be responsible. Anytime you do anything in the dating realm, make sure that you have consent from the other person. And make sure that where you use property that you own for business, that business is legitimate. Because if not, then you are setting yourself up. But average dating experiences where you coordinate with another person and go somewhere and enjoy your time on a third person's property, you're probably not at risk unless you're doing something non-consensual. So let's be intentional in the way that we treat people, and let's be intentional in social cues, understanding when people are uncomfortable and doing our best to comprehend people's body language.
Yeah. That's well said. And that's one of the first things I say in the conflict mediation things. Like, one of the first indicators that you're in conflict is when you're doing something without consent. And that can even just be having a conversation that another person, didn't want to have. I tell the story in the class, man. I call my homeboy up on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. How you feeling? He was like, well, how the F you think I feel? It's my first Father's Day without my father. Boom. I think the plan of action, man, for this, man, and I've said this many times, I think the plan of action is to make a commitment to protect the most vulnerable in your community. And when you walk in a room, you should do an assessment. Like, who is that? And then once you do that, you can just, you can make the necessary adjustments, man, to change the total climate of that space. And you know how I know that, man? Going to O'Day all those years. Because it was nothing but dudes. And you would think in a pro male, sexist, you know what I'm saying, misogynistic, you know what I'm saying, society, that men have all the power in that space. Nah, man. But when you look around the room, you be like, there's a whole bunch of dudes. But what dude has the most power? And is that person abusing that power? Who has the least amount of power? And sometimes I was the dude who had the most power and who was abusing it, man. I did some toxic stuff at O'Day, man. Just making fun of people just because I could. And I'd be telling myself, man, if I see this dude named Jim, we used to call him Jimbo, this Native American brother, kind of white presenting Native American. He had a face full of acne. And that boy had some goggles on him, boy. That boy had some glasses with stick. I mean, his eyes look like this. Those eyes, man, he had like some tri-eyes. And his hair was long and greasy. We gave him the business, man. And I was one of the worst ones. I mean, I literally dedicated Bobby time and energy to write a Weird Al Yankovic inspired song about him. That's how much of a bully I was to this guy. Now listen, I took time out of my busy schedule as a 15-year-old to take the song by LL Cool J, Cars Go By with the Boom and Systems. I sat down, Bobby, in a notebook and wrote at least 20 to 30 bars. Over 16. Put a hook in it and everything. You know what the hook was? Jim goes by with the boom and pimples.
Oh my goodness. The toxicity is on 10.
And it was and I presented it to him the next day with an audience.
That was honest. That was honest though.
Yeah, I presented it to him.
Presented.
Because you know the first line of the rap is, you know it's funky because you heard it from hearsay. You know it's pussy because you saw it on his face.
Oh my God.
Man, hey bro. If I saw Jim today,
you gotta apologize.
I would definitely, man, and a hug and all that. If he would accept it,
he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to.
No, he does. It has to be consent, Bobby.
He doesn't have to accept it. Is all I'm saying. He could say,
yeah. I said if he'll accept it. Yeah, that's what yeah. But yeah, no, I'm smiling and all that, man, and I make humor of it. But I learned from that situation. And a lot of people will tell you, man, and it's not something I'm proud of, but I can definitely make humor out of it because I think it's funny to make fun of bullies. And I never made fun of people because I thought low of myself. That's not what it was. I made fun of people because I just thought it was funny and I liked attention. It wasn't because I thought I was like less than or anything, or I had to, no, I just thought it's funny. But it taught me you can be right a lot of the times, but it doesn't matter if you're right, you know what I'm saying, but you're a jerk or an a-hole. You feel me? I was definitely right about the condition of that man's face. He definitely needs to consult a dermatologist. Bobby, man, I'm trying to be serious here. That was the truth. But the reality of it is that I should not have been making fun of that man. I should not have made fun of you when I first came on and called you, the lost member of NWA. Yes, I should have.
I would just say I deserve it. It's fine.
I feel like you did that on purpose because like now you're working on like extremes now. First it was tank top Bobby, right? Mm-hmm. Now you go extreme. You're in the summertime, my dude, with a beanie on and a long sleeve sweatshirt. Like
a bit of anemia. It's got some anemia going on. You know,
Are you being serious right now?
yeah.
Oh my God. See that? See, come on, bro. No, you can't do that, bro.
I
You
can.
could have told me that way before we got.
Why would I
See,
do
now
that
you
when
make
I
me
can
look
when
like
I
a jerk.
I can guilt shame you now. This is perfect. This is a
Oh
perfect
man,
set.
come on, Bob.
Listen
No,
up,
you don't
Easter.
have
Listen up,
anemia.
Easter Island. It's okay.
No, you really have anemia.
Yeah, well, I've developed it. I've had some
Oh
issues.
my God. With all that red meat you eat, all that iron in the red meat.
You know what? You get old and this shit happens.
You're not even that old, bro. You barely. Oh, damn. I'm lost light. All right. That's a good time. All right. Power to the people. Hey, man, make sure that you guys are checking us out. We're going to try to be on here on a more regular basis and whatnot. It's Seed Talk. Make sure you check out Burien Library, July 12th, 1 p.m. Come check us out. Mental health, grief support, conflict mediation. And then we're at the White Center Library, July 19th, 1 p.m. also. Make sure you inbox me and check me out if you want more information about that. And we out. We love y'all. Peace.